Okay, welcome back. So we are in it. We're finishing this up. This is War Crimes. Part one, to the victor go the spoils. And this is Detective Comics 809. Writer Anderson Gabrick, penciler Pete Woods, inker BIT, colors Jason Wright, October 2005. Down on the tracks of the subway train of Gotham City, Batman is questioning the leader of the Odessa mob, Alexander Kosov, about Black Mask's next movement, but she refuses to tell Batman anything. Batman ties her hands and feet together on her back and hangs her from the ceiling of the tunnel. As the subway train comes towards her, Alexandra panics and gives Batman a full confession of Black Mask's activities. Batman saves her before the train crushes her, and he removes her glass eye as a punishment for all the evil deeds that her gang committed during the gang war. Batman leaves Alexandra in the darkness and warns her to keep insects out of the empty eye socket. Reporter Arturo Rodriguez stars on in his own TV show where he exposes some of the most relevant crime cases in Gotham, and this time he has brought a guest to his show, a man called Aaron Black, that wants to address the outcome of the gang war that destroyed Gotham. Black starts explaining, I wish they would come up with like more distinct names. But Black starts explaining that the criminals and the vigilantes are not the only ones to blame for the situation, but the GCPD is also guilty of letting things get out of control. Black also talks about the death of Stephanie Brown, as he has researched a lot about the case. He explains that Brown was a vigilante known as Spoiler and that she was also the latest Robin, and he blames Batman for allowing kids to undertake his crusade and cost their lives in the meantime. However, he explains that the death of Stephanie happened under mysterious circumstances and that she might still be alive if not for all the events that evolved during the gang war. Aaron Black asked the people of Gotham to gather together at a memorial for all the people fallen during the gang war. That night, Bruce keeps a close eye on the meeting that Black Mask was supposed to go to, but the criminal never showed up. Back in the Batcave, Bruce examines the information on the Bat computer when Alfred delivers Bruce a videotape sent to him. The tape was a recording of the earlier show where Arturo Rodriguez talked to Aaron Black. Bruce recalled all the past events until the death of Stephanie, and after watching the whole video, he decides to go out and investigate who is responsible for leaking information about Stephanie's death and for sending him the tape, as it is obvious that it must be someone who knows that he is Bruce and Batman. Batman goes to see Leslie Tompkins at the East Side Clinic, but upon arriving, he learns that, oh my gosh, she quit and she has gone away for a few days. After talking to a nurse, Batman learns that Leslie and her personal assistant Vera shared some sort of secret about Stephanie's death. Batman also learns that the files from Stephanie Brown have been retrieved by Leslie's assistant, and soon he goes to see her. He arrives at her place, and when he enters her room, he finds her dead body, crucified to the wall, and written with bat rings, I believe, and written in blood the word snitch. Batman notices the folder with the confidential information about Stephanie was in the bed, but a quick glimpse makes him realize that the last pages are missing. Batman leaves the place and goes to Leslie's home, which is utterly empty, and Batman doesn't quite understand why Leslie would leave in that manner, as if escaping from something or someone. Batman returns to the crime scene and takes a closer look, after which he realizes that Leslie's assistant was stabbed in the wrists, ankles, and chest with some of his own batarangs. And after removing them and cleaning the message written in blood, Batman puts the body back in the wall. But this time he places knives instead of discarded batteries. Listen, I had a major issue with what was going down here. Someone is trying to frame him, and Batman believes that it must be Black Mask. The next morning, Bruce Wayne goes to the memorial organized by Aaron Black, and after the whole day of looking closer to the man or into the man, Batman thinks he knows who Aaron Black really is. As Black leaves the gathering, Batman approaches him and tells him to stop pretending, as he already knows the truth. From behind Batman, a voice tells him he also knows who quote unquote Batman really is. The person posing as Batman turns around and discovers that Joker is aiming a gun at him and laughing maniacally.
I don't know if that DC Wikia's recap.
It was.
Yeah, they spoiled the reveal that it was an imposter.
They did. Yeah, I was like, that transition is a bit odd. Yeah, because there's a Batman. He starts beating up on Aaron Black, and you're like, what's happening? And then another Batman appears, and Joker,
And
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 all
and
that.
as
Yeah.
me reading this at the time, I thought that it was Batman and the
Beating.
cliffhanger when the Joker says, "I know who you really are," and I'm like, the Joker's because somebody sent something the Wayne Manor, and they know, so they know who Batman is. So I was like, did the Joker do this? And I had to wait till part two to see that was so. a DC Wiki,
They just
that
went
they're not
for
going
it.
to keep us in. Yeah, they just went for.
Yeah.
Although it is hard to recap that without like without either line or giving away like the part two.
Yeah, and I will say that even though the writer of the Wikia said that Alexandra had a glass eye, that I think it must have been some other sort of stone, because he does say that it would feed several families, and that's why he snatches it from her eyeball, her socket. I I guess I'm silly. I did not know that the gang war only went on for 3 days, because boy did that feel like weeks.
It was weeks for us.
It
Um,
really felt like it.
well,
Did you
it
know
was.
that it was 3 days?
I feel like it was longer based on like the school shooting and everything that went down,
Yeah,
but like I would honestly have to go back and like look through. And
yeah.
if I was in my 20s, I would, but I'm in my late 30s now, and I'm like, I
It's
don't have
hard.
the time to
Yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah.
Is it really important for me to fact check this right now? Of
Yeah.
like, if Batman says it's 3 days, I'll allow it.
Yeah, it was there's some disbelief on my side, I will say about that.
I'm kind of with you on that because I remember a lot more transitions, especially around Act One.
Yeah,
Like I can buy Acts two and three being 3 days, maybe, but
yeah. It's a lot going down. Um, oh yeah. Okay, let me see if I can
I
find this.
this is where you're going to talk about the nurse.
I do want to talk about that. My first point is
I
about
know you do.
Arturo. Oh,
Arthur.
okay. Let's see here. During the gang war, he was abducted. This is Batman narrating. During the gang war, he was abducted by Black Mask and forced to record his atrocities, and he blames me. Go figure. This is literally Bat. I don't think Batman would say go figure. Aaron, oh, was that it? There was something he made a comment about him. Once one of my biggest supporters, how far things have come. I don't know. I said, does he not give more credit? My question was, does Batman not give Arturo more credit when talking about how he doesn't support him any longer? Because it felt like he was leaving out some facts.
I
I
do
guess the kid.
remember.
Well,
I do remember Arturo, like in War Games, did turn on Batman really quickly, like after the school shooting.
after
He's
the
like,
school
"Well,
shooting, yeah,
yeah." He's like, "Well, Batman, like it sucks now." And I'm like, were you not like the biggest Batman pusher like a few pages
like he's
ago?
a great man. But it's just interesting, this transition that he's abducted and forced to record the bad things that Black Mask is doing. He blames Batman. Like, I don't know
I
that
never got the
connection
sense that he blamed Batman.
for
I
all of
think he
that.
was
Yeah,
pretty anti-Batman before that,
yeah,
and Black Mask abducted him, and he was like, "Hey, I like being alive. Let's make a deal so I get to be alive."
yeah. It was just, yeah, very interesting. Um, well, we'll move on. Yes, I really didn't like this. I don't think that Batman would do this. So I guess, what your thoughts are. Batman really messing with that crime scene. I found it disturbing. He's cleaning things, making it so that he is not going to be implicated, and leaves her hanging.
I have mixed feelings about it because number
Okay.
one, when he left the crime scene in the first place, I was like, "What are you doing? That's just going to make it worse for you." Then he's like, "Oh yeah." Then he goes back and cleans them. Like, okay, I would be okay if he would have just taken the batarangs out and cleaned the snitch stuff. But then, like, to set her back up with like alternative weapons, I thought that was when it went too far. Like, as opposed to leaving her on the bed or dropping her off at the well, he can't drop her off anymore, like because the cops are mad at him. But I'm glad that he got rid of the stuff that implicated himself. But yeah, it was weird. Just take her off the wall, putting her back on the wall. That was something.
Yeah, I feel like the Batman that I do like is one which or who treats victims with dignity, alive or dead. And I did not see that here.
Like letting their ex boyfriends spend their final moments with them before they die.
Yeah. I mean, I'll ask, I think later on about Batman's methods in this particular story. And I also do have some questions about Arturo. I think I'll say that for the next one. I think those were the three things that I had on this particular issue. Any thoughts from you?
Just I remember reading this from the stands, and it felt like, I mean, this had to have been planned during War Games because like some of the stuff is set up in War Games, like Arturo and Black Mask working together because that's a reveal. Like it looks like he's just a hostage in the Clock Tower chapter, but then like having that kind of collusion, that's kind of set up there, as is what Leslie Tompkins does that we find out in part 4. But otherwise, like this storyline feels like almost an apology for War Games. Like, hey, let's deal with the things that we messed up and like address some of those. And it feels less bloated than War Games too, because it's like only 4 parts. So I liked it at the time. I was hoping it would reveal that Stephanie was alive, but it didn't. I had to wait a few more, years for that.
And too bad Orpheus doesn't get a similar treatment.
Nope.
Like Orpheus Morpheus.
It,
Okay.
yeah, so disposable that I accidentally called him Onyx
I
earlier
know,
in the podcast.
seriously.
Yeah, like that's how much he was on everyone's mind. Poor
Yeah.
guy.
Okay, well, we'll move on to part two, minor discrepancies. This was in Batman 643, same cover date. Writer Bill Willingham, penciler Giuseppe Caramuncoli, inker Sandra Hope, and colorist Jason Wright. Aaron Black was apparently attacked by Batman when Joker appeared and challenged Batman. They start fighting and beating each other until the real Batman appears and tries to stop them both from killing each other. Batman attacks the Joker first, the real Batman, I guess, to eliminate the most dangerous person on the scene, but the imposter Batman seizes the chance to run away. Batman knocks the Joker unconscious. He hesitates for a moment and then decides what to do. He tells Aaron Black to get somewhere safe before the Joker recovers, and then Batman starts chasing down the imposter. Meanwhile, Arturo Rodriguez is having a conversation with Crystal Brown about her future appearances on his show, where she's going to tell the audience the story of her daughter, Stephanie, and how she was killed during the gang war. And he really wants some waterworks from her. The imposter Batman climbs to a rooftop and takes off the disguise, revealing himself to be Black Mask. He calls some of his men to pick him up at the place where he is, but he wasn't able to tell them where that place is because he lost track of the location during the chase in which he believes to have lost Batman. What a sentence. However, Batman jumps at him from behind at the same moment and they start fighting. Black Mask tries to stand his ground against the Dark Knight, but Batman is able to overpower the crime lord with ease. Before delivering the final blow, Batman tells Black Mask to remove the costume, but the criminal takes out a gas grenade and uses it against Batman, who tries to put on his gas mask. But in the meantime, Black Mask again manages to escape for good. Bruce goes back to the Batcave and tries to solve the mystery of the disappearance of Leslie Tompkins and Stephanie Brown's medical records from the clinic, along with the death of Leslie's assistant. Alfred suggests that maybe he can find useful information using his unique detective skills that he's just rediscovered. And after a quick lunch break provided by the butler, Bruce finds that the medical records about the medications administered the night of Stephanie's death were altered. I would almost call them, what's that called when you count things? Inventory. Whew. I would almost call that inventory
I
rather than medical records, but we'll go with it. Were altered, and he
don't think
deduced
Bill Willingham works at hospitals.
and he deduces that someone let Stephanie die deliberately. Bruce's anger gets out of control and he starts training with his punching bag until it breaks. Later, the manager of WBGK is waiting for Arturo Rodriguez to show up, and when the man finally does, he demands an explanation for the lack of important interviews on the show. Rodriguez explains that Aaron Black has disappeared from his radar and that he just has Crystal Brown as replacement. However, the manager shows Rodriguez that Aaron Black has not disappeared, as he is giving an interview to Winona Chen over at Channel 7. Black, who has taken over the alias of the Reformer, tells that he was attacked by 2 Batmen and that he believes that there might be many more of them prowling the city. He also states that he was offered protection from Rodriguez's station, but despite that, he was almost killed by Joker and the Batman. Lastly, Black questions the various people that benefited from the gang war, such as Black Mask, Commissioner Akins, and Rodriguez himself. As a result of this, the media tries to get a statement from Commissioner Akins, who refuses to talk to any of the journalists. That night, Batman goes to Carlo's nightclub, a den for various sorts of criminals, and enters through the main door. As he does that, many miniature robots enter the place and locate themselves on various key points of interest and start recording the audio inside the place. Batman tells the thugs that he's looking for Black Mask, Joker, Leslie Tompkins, and Aaron Black, and soon he starts beating all the thugs. However, a few minutes later, Batman leaves the place, allowing the thugs to think that they were victorious over him. Batman goes away on the Batmobile and calls Alfred to start recording the conversations of the thugs at the nightclub, as the plan was to make them talk about all they know of the situation. Okay. Question number 1 about Arturo. Perhaps this happened betwixt the end of War Games and this, but he seems really unsympathetic, especially towards Crystal. He seems, I mean, even as this TV personality, we knew him as a man on the streets, kind of lower on the hierarchy. He just seems completely different than what we were reading, or the person we were reading who cared about things in War Games. What happened?
He wasn't a very well developed character, but I would say the whole man on the street thing, like his stardom grew after he was reporting on the front line of War Games. So like that's what happens. That's why like he's the marquee like newsman now. And as we find out, he made some deals with Black Mask in order to stay alive during the hostage situation. So they've been colluding. I think that that's part of it. I think I wouldn't say he's changed. I would just say that we're learning more about him, and what we're finding out about him is that he's not a very honorable person, as you would say. He's, just in it for ratings, just in it for himself, and self-grandizing.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't have said that of him or called him a muckraker, as the next issue does, when we were first reading about him. But yeah, I suppose an interaction with Black Mask would change you, and maybe he feels like he's sold his soul to the devil, and so now it's like, well,
I don't even think he feels like he sold his soul to the devil. I just
really?
think he made a deal in the situation he was in. He just seems to
Is he
be
living
like,
in it with it, or is he thriving with it?
I think he feels like he's thriving.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
I don't see any remorse from him at all.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah,
But
he doesn't see it
yeah.
as a deal with the devil. He sees it as like, I want to survive. Let me make a deal with you, and I don't think he feels too bad about it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he's certainly, like plotting this innocent woman's death. Stephanie's mom. It's weird calling her Crystal for me because, like,
Yeah.
so this storyline is actually the first time that she's referred to as Crystal Brown. She was Agnes before this,
Oh,
but they changed her name during this storyline
maybe for
because
the
I don't
better.
think that they knew her first name, because her first name wasn't said very often, because most of the characters that she would interact with would be Stephanie, who would call her mom. So
Oh, man. Do you think you would lose your life to save others?
that I would booze my life.
Lose your life to save others? Or would you go the path of Arturo and save your life?
Man, I mean, that's acting like that there's two choices. Like the path of Arturo, like he's just reveling in it. We don't know what we would do until we're faced with that situation. We can never say, because there's that primal fight or flight instinct. I would like to think that I would lay down my life to help others,
Yeah.
but
Just,
I
I
mean,
guess, knowing what would happen, if
yeah,
you're not
I
free to
mean,
control Black Mask.
again, Arturo doesn't seem to mind.
That's
he,
what
he
shocks
seems
me.
to, yeah,
Yeah.
he's a willing participant.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that it's shocking you, because again, like he wasn't a very well developed character. Like we didn't see him like
But he
bathing the.
seemed like a decent human every time we saw him in War Games.
Seemed like a human in War Games to me.
Okay.
Maybe not a decent human, but a human. I mean, he turned on Batman very fast. But
For
then
good
again,
reason, potentially.
you turn on Batman every episode, and you're not working with
Yeah.
Black Mask. Are
Well,
you
when
working with Black
Batman
Mask?
walks out with a young, no, I'm not. When Batman walks out cradling a dead teenager, I'd turn on him too. Like, what have you done? What have you done?
I
Just
I
like
I think
Spider-Man 2.
maybe that's why he turned on Batman so fast, was not because of morality, but because, oh, this could be a good angle for ratings.
Jeez.
I could
Maybe.
package this. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. We'll move on. Batman explains in the midst of the rooftop fight with Black Mask why Black Mask was able to get close to defeating him, and even says like, "All you villains are the same. You think that you get close, but da 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 da." Do you feel like this explanation is more to the fans? Is this more of a
Yes.
a meta commentary of when people ask like, "Should he have gotten close to defeating Batman?" And Batman's like, "I
Nakedly
was
so.
tired. I haven't eaten. I've been stretched thin." Yeah, and he's like, "That's why you were able to." Yeah. Okay.
Very nakedly so. Yes, I would.
Nakedly,
Yeah,
Donovan,
yeah,
is that
very.
you?
Now the word naked automatically means Donovan. Like,
Yeah.
just yeah, like no, very like even the first time I read this, I was like, oh wow, yeah, this is written for the message board fans. Like, absolutely. Like all the people who said, why did Batman almost die at the end of War Games? He could have taken Black Mask. Like, this was,
Mm,
oh, actually, and that's what I meant when I said before that, like, some of this feels like an apology for War Games almost, like, and
mm,
stuff like this.
yeah. And then my final question was just about this is the moment where he sort of washes himself of the blame. Feel like maybe it happened at the end.
When he's punching the punching bag, is that in this issue?
Is that
He's like, hooray, Stephanie's death isn't my fault, but whose fault is it?
I still rightfully carry a lot of the blame for what happened during the gang war, but not this. Not her, not anymore.
Yeah, that's that.
Because he says he got I got Stephanie to Leslie's clinic in time to save her.
I still don't think that that's fair.
Too clean. I would
and,
agree.
and again, it really depends upon like what our reality is the reality that Black Mask killed Stephanie, and if Black Mask killed Stephanie, is that Batman's fault, or did Leslie kill Stephanie and is that Batman's fault, or did Stephanie survive, which is the final reality, and is it Batman's fault that she almost died?
Yeah.
I'd say that Batman has some blame for kicking off the whole War Games thing with Stephanie. So to call himself completely blameless, he treated Stephanie bad, and Stephanie reacted in a way that caused War Games, but ultimately it was his fault. Now, I'm a believer is that when someone kills someone else, it's the killer's fault, not like, this person that drove the killer. Like, if a guy became a serial killer because his ex-wife, like burned down his car or something, then it's not the ex-wife's fault that like the guy killed someone. It's the killer's fault. So like if Black Mask killed Stephanie, it's not Batman's fault, but Batman still has some responsibility for Stephanie overall. And it's really weird how he's so like loudly disowning this, whereas like when Joker killed Jason, Batman still blamed himself and held himself responsible. I think the truth is something like very, very nuanced, but Batman
Yeah.
being so like, it's not my fault is kind of unbecoming.
Yeah. I think things are, which is interesting because, in the email, Shayna was bringing up about heroes being black and white, or having that law and order, or I may be misinterpreting what she was saying there, but I feel like the hero world is very gray.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on part two?
Not really. A lot of the points about this storyline kind of weave into it because it's a
Yeah,
very like it feeds into itself. Like most of our thoughts will probably be at the end.
indeed. Okay, so part three, A Consequence of Truth, Detective Comics 810. Writer Anderson Gabrick, penciler Pete Woods, inker BIT, and colorist Jason Wright. Again, same cover date. After the memorial arranged by Aaron Black, Black Mask starts planning his next move. In the meantime, Batman pays his respects to Stephanie Brown at the memorial, at the sight of hundreds of people. Batman then leaves the place and contacts Alfred to learn more about the thugs' conversation at Carlos. Alfred informs him that the thugs had no clue about Leslie Tompkins or Joker's whereabouts, but they seemed to be informed about Aaron Black and Black Mask's latest activities. The information led Batman to Winona Chen, the main anchor woman from the Channel 7 News, the main competition of Arturo Rodriguez and Channel 8. Batman spots Chen as she walks to the rooftop of Channel 7, along with 3 bodyguards, and he uses a smoke batarang to eliminate the men protecting her. He grabs Chen, takes her to a different rooftop where they can talk without restrictions. Chen is afraid that Batman might kill her, but Batman explains that Black Mask is the one who has been posing as him and killing people. He also tells her that he only wants to know how to find Aaron Black. But before revealing that information, Chen wants something from him in exchange, which we don't learn about until later. And I have a question about. Aaron Black is sitting alone in his apartment watching a picture of his family. Looking at a pic. I don't know, man. I don't know. Well, looking at a picture of his family during one of her daughter's birthdays. Looking at a picture of his family during one of his daughter's birthdays, and he sheds a tear of sorrow. Batman arrives and finally uncovers Aaron Black as Arthur Brown, aka the Clue Master, who was returned to Gotham after his deadly accident on a mission of the Suicide Squad. Brown reveals that he barely made it out alive from the accident and that while recovering, all he could think of was his daughter, Stephanie. As soon as he recovered, he returned to Gotham to see her, and he found out that she was killed during the gang war. Batman wants Brown's help finding Stephanie's missing medical records, but Brown reveals that his ex-wife, Crystal, is going to make a big reveal soon. Just then, Arturo Rodriguez starts broadcasting his show Taking Sides with Arturo, in which he has Crystal Brown for a special interview. However, Arturo tries to force unwanted answers about Crystal's death from Crystal. However, Arturo tries to force unwanted answers about Stephanie's death from Crystal, and shortly after, Batman appears on set and attacks Arturo and Crystal. He starts telling them that Stephanie was worthless and that her death was well deserved. Both of them try to attack Batman, but he overpowers them both until someone grabs Arturo from behind and tosses him away from Batman. The person that tossed Arturo was, in fact, the real Batman, and he rips off the mask. I will say it's a very disturbing scene from the fake Batman, revealing once again to be Black Mask. Batman tells Black Mask to give up the medical records he stole, but the crime lord instead burns the corner of the folder before being stopped by Batman. Black Mask then runs away from the building, and Batman tries to follow him without success. Upon returning to the set, Batman watches as Crystal Brown rips the medical records to pieces, and she explains that it doesn't matter how her daughter died, but the fact that she is dead is all that matters to her. Later, Batman keeps searching for Black Mask, unaware that he was taken by the Joker, who is holding the crime lord and pointing a gun at him. Black Mask hits the Joker, takes the weapon from him, and tries to turn the situation around, but the gun he took was, of course, a toy gun that shoots a bang flag, and he fails on his attempt. Joker pulls out a real gun and shoots Black Mask in the leg. As Black Mask crawls on the ground, Joker explains that he has been chasing Black Mask all along. Since he took the job, he likes more than anything else in the world. He took this job from Joker, and that is killing Robins.
I only killed the one.
I know. Well, he wanted to make it a pastime of his. Okay. How shocked were you at the reveal when you were a young whippersnapper Josue picking this issue up?
I was in
That
my
Aaron Black,
19 or 20, like
you
not that.
just got out of diapers. How did you feel?
Wow. I stay pretty late. Not that shocked. It kind of made sense, like, with the appearance and everything, and obviously I've never actually read his death in Suicide Squad, but I had heard about it, so I was like, oh yeah, it makes sense that he'd come back. I do like Batman being like, and that's why you sent me the tape, and he's like, I never sent you any tape, and
Yeah.
that it's nice to see Batman like kind of like lost, because he's always like, oh, I was 6 steps ahead of this thing or that thing, which is why like it annoys me in part 4 when he like tells Alfred, I knew the secret to this mystery all weeks ago. I just decided not to like say anything, and it's like, you didn't know. You were telling Arthur Brown, you sent me the tape. But long answer to that question, no, I was not shocked, and it was actually kind of nice to bring him back for something like this.
I was shocked in 2023.
Oh, really?
I didn't know.
Oh.
I didn't know. I could tell that I was like, oh, well, it's someone that Batman knows because he's saying, like, you seem familiar, the raspy voice. I'm like, who could it be? who could it be? The face. I'm looking at the scarred face. I don't know. I don't know. And then yeah, it was Arthur Brown. I was like, oh, that makes sense now. So I like it. I think it makes sense. But yeah, I was
Yeah.
shocked. I was
And
shocked.
they don't he does not reunite with his daughter until the very
No.
end. In fact, you covered this on your podcast years ago when you were just out of diapers.
Oh.
Like in the first Stephanie and
Oh
Stephanie's
yeah.
title
Mm-hmm.
at the very end, because he was presumed dead and came back, and then she's presumed dead and come back. So like
Yeah.
they don't come together until I think it's like the last arc of her Brian Q. Miller book.
A reunion of sorts.
Yeah, and I think he still looks like this. Doesn't look like this anymore because of like, continuity changes. Yeah. Or maybe plastic surgery. Maybe he got Tommy Elliott.
I will
Oh.
say this right here, where like Batman's like digging into his mouth in order to rip open his
Yeah.
rip off his face. I will say that was disturbing for me. Are you surprised that Crystal Agnes Brown destroyed destroyed the
I didn't
files?
even tell you her maiden name. You would have added that in there because, like, when we first meet her, she's Agnes Dallinger. So, like, Crystal
Ooh.
Agnes Brown Dallinger.
I think Dallinger would go first. But are you surprised she destroys the files?
No, because I get her mental state of mind where it's like knowing the answer is not going to give you any comfort one way or another. Also, I'm wondering if she already knows, like, because those files have been out there and they've been passed around, and even like Arthur saying like, oh, my ex-wife is about to like make this announcement on TV. Does that mean that like they've been colluding too, or does he just know that because he's been talking to Arturo? You know what I mean? And if he knows that because he's been talking to Arturo, does that mean that he knows about like Black Mask is about to kill his wife? Which there's kind of a lot with the whole like, Black Mask, Arturo, Crystal Brown, Joker plan where like
Yeah.
I need to like read this again to understand it more.
I feel like
I've heard
Arturo is playing both sides, but Arthur is only playing his own and going
yeah,
towards. I don't
Arthur,
think Arthur is connected to Black Mask at all.
but he knew about that what his wife was going to say on TV. Maybe he wasn't colluding with his wife, but like, and maybe Arturo didn't tell him that like he was going to kill Crystal. I don't think Crystal Agnes Dallinger Brown. Um, I don't think Arturo would have revealed that. And
Well,
I don't think Arthur would have been down for that plan either.
I don't know
Like,
that he actually knew what she was going to say because she came in thinking that she was going to talk about one thing, and then Arturo started bombarding her with questions, and then the last question before it all happened is like, "Who is Batman?"
Yeah, because it's set up that like she was going to reveal Batman's identity, but then Batman killed her. Like that's the frame up.
Yeah. I mean, there's some confusing.
So I guess she's not. Yeah. So when I say is she colluding with them, I guess she wouldn't be because then she'd be colluding her own death, which I don't think she's a part of.
I think she's.
But I totally get her destroying the files.
Yeah.
It's
I think she's completely separate, an ignorant third party of what's going on. Ignorant of what's going on. Yes. I mean, I was shocked that she did it. Because kind of answering the question of how and why, but the point stands. Yeah, she's dead. That's the only thing that really matters. It's not like the information is going to bring her back. Though I think in Batman's mind, it's about justice again, right? He wants the person to pay for what happened to her.
I mean, and there's been some real life parallels because, as I mentioned, God, when we started doing war games, some people who I know they lost a family member in real life, and there has been speculation over how it happened, with some family members clinging to one theory, thinking that like if we find out this answer, if we find out it was this might make it feel better, and other family members are ultimately accepting of no, it doesn't matter how it happened, like nothing's going to bring her back. So I kind of get that.
How but not why? They're focused on the methods?
The people who I know in real life.
Yeah.
There's
I'm surprised they're not focused on the why. That's why I'm asking.
Well, I think the why and the how go hand in hand.
Okay.
And I'm being purposely vague because I don't know, because it's a heavy topic and I don't want to.
Understand. Yeah.
I don't want to like blindside the listeners with like, man, we came to Batgirl the Oracle for fun, but
is this show ever fun?
I
It's
mean,
been 20 years.
we used to read Arthur fanfics, and like, you
Oh,
know,
yes.
and
And the
there was that,
fly butter sandwich.
and there was that anniversary show where you and I thought about this earlier, and I'm like, do you and I have a song? And then I thought, oh yeah, there's that anniversary show where we did the Frozen song with Hans and
Oh, yeah. Your brother just
yeah,
went back
love
to
is an
back.
open door. No, we do it. Love is an open door.
Oh, okay, okay. There's
Yeah,
that one intro where, yeah, it's like,
yeah.
your
My
brother
brother
just
just went.
went back to bed.
That
Yeah,
was before my brother had his 4 kids, because he's
yeah.
got 4 kids
There
now.
you go.
Since we did that, my brother just
Yeah,
went back to. We've been doing the show for a long time.
that's a long time. Yeah. I wonder if anyone was born in 2009 and then like they've grown up with this show.
Let's see, 2009. They would be 14 years old.
Close to it, yeah.
Well, you were the very end of 2009, but let's round up and say 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible someone's been listening since they were 10, and like,
In utero.
I, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Would a toddler enjoy this show?
Who knows? Who knows?
Toddlers, if you're listening to BTO,
Yeah.
write in,
Yeah,
write
absolutely.
in, because you know how to read and write, obviously.
Yeah. Where were
And
you the first time you heard BTO? Yeah.
yeah, I was on the changing table.
Yes. What exact so these are questions that I don't understand. I'm not getting it. What is Black Mask's motivation in framing Batman for the death of Stephanie?
To make Batman's life miserable because he's a
Okay.
bad guy,
Okay.
and
That's it.
and you know, I think as like kind of like a screw you to Batman, you
Yeah.
know.
I'm surprised
And
then
then
why
also, if Batman's out of the way, then like he could do more crime stuff.
I am surprised why Hush is not engaging more then because this is Hush's thing. And so I feel like he would put a stop to it. But
Um,
I
because
guess
this isn't a Hush storyline,
I
I
know.
guess. I
I
mean,
know.
and also, I'm trying to remember when the last time we saw Hush was at this point, because we've been doing Hush stuff over in the Gotham Knights book. I'd have to go back and look at it, but Hush
Yeah.
was kind of in a war with Joker around this time, so
Gotcha.
things were not going great for him.
And then does Black Mask know that Wesley killed Stephanie, do you think?
If he's had access to the files, then yes,
Okay.
he would have to know,
Okay.
which is kind of weird. Uh, that like he has this information. I don't know why he's not lording it over Batman or
Yeah.
something. Like again, like this felt a lot clearer when I read it when I was 19 or 20, however old I was when I read this, than when I'm reading this now. Like I'm a little more confused about the plan and the why. Maybe it's because I was reading it like week to week at the time. So like I had moments to like look through the clues and like let it sit with me more. Whereas like this one I just read in an afternoon in one sitting and I'm like, huh. Yeah, why did Black Mask like choose to do this now? Why did he go for the medical records now, etc.? Like
I guess emotional blackmail.
there's a lot of questions, and
Yeah.
then when you realize that Stephanie's alive, actually, which wasn't planned when this was written, this that raises more questions about certain things.
Yeah. Emotional blackmail doesn't seem to be Black Mask's shtick, but it seems like that's what he's doing here to a certain extent.
I mean, if Batman, it's a way to fuck with Batman emotionally. Oh, I said that. I said an F word. Sorry.
Oh, well, luckily I will I get to bleep that on the audio, but it's there now for posterity.
Posterity. Ooh. Yeah. Will I get one of those NBC lip flaps? But yeah, he wants to mess with Batman emotionally, and
Yeah.
then also if Batman gets caught and like arrested for this, then he gets to do more crime stuff without being stopped.
Yeah.
Sonics isn't going to do anything.
Hmm.
She's too busy being forgotten.
Jeez. Jeez. Um, those are my thoughts.
Every time Batman says, I'm all alone, I'm all alone, I'm all alone, you ever think Onyx is just like, well, screw you too? Like,
Yeah.
I'm here. It's like, all my allies are gone. All my allies have left Gotham. Every single one of them. All of them. Everyone. And meanwhile, Onyx is like, I'm literally trying to keep the peace together in this neighborhood.
I'm sure there's some racism has to do with that. Did we see Onyx anymore after this? Post
probably,
2005?
but like,
Okay.
I'd have to look.
Yeah, I
And
guess I could always go on DC Wikia and see her appearances and see where else she pops up. Well, any other thoughts on part 3?
no Celtinos.
Okay. So then we have the finale, Judgment at Gotham. This is part 4, Batman 644. Writer
Oh,
Bill
then we
William.
have 6 more epilogues and another trade to go.
I almost reached through my camera to strangle you. Yeah. Okay. Writer Bill Willingham, penciler Giuseppe Camuncoli, inker Sandra Hope, and colorist Jason Wright. Same cover date. Black Mask is attacked by a Joker, and the clown explains that the reason for his hatred towards Sionis is the fact that he was held responsible for the death of Stephanie Brown, the only female Robin, taking the chance of killing her away from Joker, because that's his favorite pastime. Joker prepares to deliver the final blow and points his gun at Black Mask, who in return kicks the weapon out of Joker's hands, and the struggle continues. At that moment, Batman arrives at the alley where they are fighting and stops the fight. Joker and Black Mask try to escape, but Batman manages to get a hold of them and restrains them long enough for the the GCPD to arrive on the scene. Batman drags Black Mask close to the police, but Joker pulls out a couple of guns from his jacket and points them at Batman and Black Mask. His guns seem to be only toy guns with darts as ammunition, but Joker shoots them and the darts stick to Batman's chest and Black Mask's forehead. As soon as they are in contact with the target, the darts start burning Black Mask's head and Batman's suit. Acid. Joker explains that he coated the darts with acid and glue, so they can't be removed. Batman removes the upper part of the batsuit. I do have a question about this. And then he takes out a basic solution, meaning it's, acid and base, that sort of thing, from his utility belt and neutralizes the acid that is hurting Black Mask's face. Joker is enraged at Batman, but the Dark Knight's wrath is far worse than Joker's, and he knocks the criminal out with a single punch. Batman drags both criminals to the police and gets on his way. However, some of the officers try to arrest Batman, but he convinces them to leave him alone for their own good. A few days later, Winona Chen and her partner give the news about the outcome of the trials concerning Joker and Black Mask. Joker's lawyers will most likely use the insanity plea to send Joker back to Arkham, while Black Mask is going to be convicted for the murders of Stephanie Brown and Vera Cesares. But he manages to escape from police custody moments before the trial by killing 2 guards, 3 civilians, and the judge. The Odessa mob leader, Alexander Kosov, is convicted for conspiracy to commit murder in the events of the Alamo High, and the famous reporter Arturo Rodriguez is also indicted for conspiracy to commit murder. It is revealed on a videotape sent by an anonymous person that during the moments in which Arturo was Black Mask's hostage at the Gotham Clock Tower, Arturo allied himself with Black Mask and started working with the crime lord, giving him access to all kinds of confidential information. Rodriguez was fired from his network and soon was arrested by the police as he played an important part in the attempted murder of Crystal Brown on his own show. Alfred Pennyworth and Bruce watch the news in the Batcave, and Alfred is glad that all the events from the gang were they're all in the past. However, Bruce has 2 more unfinished pieces of business to attend to and asks Alfred to prepare the Bat plan for later that night, as he is going to travel out of the country for a few days in order to find Stephanie's true killer. Batman's first stop is in Gotham City in Winona Chen's apartment. Winona is utterly scared when she enters her apartment and finds Batman standing in the darkness, as anyone would. Batman is there to fulfill his promise made to her after she helped him find Aaron Black. Batman gives Winona a folder with information about the arrangements he made for her. He tells her that one of the 3 big national networks is going to call her and offer her to host her own Sunday news show. And during the first run, she would interview Superman himself. Winona is astonished by Batman's kindness and she feels like kissing the man, but soon she realizes that Batman is gone. Batman then takes the Bat plane and goes all the way to Africa, where he locates a mission camp. He tracks down Leslie Tompkins, who has returned to Africa to work as a volunteer for relief efforts. Batman watches as Leslie works harder than any other person in the camp, and when she is finally alone in one of the tents, he approaches her. Leslie, and she's not practicing medicine, by the way. She's kind of doing grunt work. Leslie is grateful that he has found her at last, and Bruce demands an explanation as to why she let Stephanie die. Leslie explains that she was desperate and wanted to finish the Caped Crusader's dream once and for all, and she decided to do so by letting Stephanie Brown die. She's regretful of what she did, and she burned her medical license and gave her fortune away. I don't know how she got it. You can tell me that. The only thing that she wants now is to end her torment, and she asks Bruce to kill her for good. Bruce refuses, as his code of honor would never allow him to kill another person, unlike Leslie. Bang, bang, shots fired. Leslie tells him that she has set up a fund for Stephanie's daughter, but Bruce replies that no fortune can replace the presence of a kid's parents as he remembers his own tragic past. Bruce decides to leave the place and give Leslie one last word of advice. She must never try to contact him again. We'll see how long that lasts. She won't return to America, and she won't practice medicine ever again. If she breaks one of those rules, Bruce will hunt her down, as she is now just another criminal on his large database of names. Batman allows Leslie to stay in Africa to deal with her own torment as he returns home. The end.
Controversy, controversy.
Yeah,
What was
okay.
that ending?
So,
Leslie Tompkins killed a kid, and now.
yeah, so we'll start with the easier questions and then we'll get to that. So, do you feel like Batman has to rip off his own suit if he has this base spray that he uses on Black Mask?
I'm not a chemist, so I can't say. So I'm just going to make up an answer and guess and say he doesn't have to. He just wants to show off his body.
The
He wants.
secondary one is, should he be able to rip his costume, so his outfit, so easily?
He's been trained to. That is a good point.
I mean, that whole scene was just like, okay, if you had enough for Black Mass, you could have used it on yourself. But there we go. That was just an easy one. Batman in this story in War Crimes seems to find, I'll say, some comfort. It feels good to him in the stress that he's feeling or has felt. He finds comfort in the violence that he's putting forth on other people. Talks about it in the bar. Of course, the bag. Everyone else he's beaten up. Do you have any thoughts on the heightened violence from Batman?
If Leslie Tompkins could read Batman's narration, she'd be like, "Told ya, told ya." Yeah, that's kind of concerning. Because I prefer my versions of Batman where like he feels like the violence is something that's unfortunately necessary, but he wished he didn't have to do it. Like he's not out for like, beating people up. He's out for protecting the innocents and like preventing crimes. That should be his primary goal. So him reveling in the violence, that's a bit much.
Yeah, I was shocked too. I mean, maybe we've seen this before in some other storylines where he's really been pushed to it, but it just, yeah, it's a little disconcerting
I
to be
mean,
like,
like
that felt good to be in that bar and beat them up.
if he's mad at the Joker for killing Jason or something like that, like those are situations where I'm like okay with him reveling in the violence. But when it's a story like this, I'm like, this is not really necessary. He shouldn't enjoy that. I mean, he enjoys scaring them, but he shouldn't enjoy like the violence.
Yeah, I think that turns you into a psychopath. So that's what
Yeah,
I worry
it's
about.
it kind of like almost proves Leslie's point,
Yeah.
which like we're not supposed to agree with Leslie in this story.
Yeah. I feel like maybe we've already answered this in our discussion about Arturo, but were you surprised when you initially read this that he was in this deep with Black Mask?
I took everything at face value when I read it the first time that he was a hostage, and then when I saw that like actually he's been colluding the whole time, that was like a teeny bit of a surprise to me, but only in like I didn't know this, like this is a reveal or this changes the context of these comics, but not too shocked because like I said, Arturo and like we discussed, he wasn't a very well developed character, so
Yeah.
like this is just us finding out more about him and surprise, he's not an honorable man.
Yeah, I think it certainly was a revelation in terms of what we had seen of him in this storyline. It wasn't as shocking, but if it had gone from what we saw before, because I still have a slight disagreement on our view of his characterization, then I would have been very shocked that, oh, that Arturo, he's in a league. Yeah, because it just would have been like a 180, I think. And then final easy question. Does Batman normally owe people favors?
Not really, but it's nice that I mean, because usually he just like demands the information,
Yeah.
but I think he's trying to be better in this
Okay.
situation.
Yeah.
That's what I took it as. He's like, all right, like, let me, like, I've driven everyone away. Let me try and learn from this. The story doesn't spell that out,
Sure.
but maybe that's like in the subtext.
Yeah. Okay, so then we get to it. I call it the revelation. So at the time, what was this like for you reading?
This was people were very upset about this. And I am not surprised because this is character assassination of Leslie Tompkins. Like Black Mask killing Stephanie, that's understandable because that's a villain killing a hero. Leslie Tompkins, this was against everything that Leslie stood for. And like, yes, she was against Bruce's like lifestyle, but not to the point of like killing a child in order to do it. And we talked about like how much of the storyline was an apology for war games. This must have been planned from the beginning because we have those subplot pages in war games of Leslie looking through the records of Stephanie's baby even before Stephanie got to the hospital, which is weird because like she was planning it then. She didn't even know that Stephanie was out there injured. So like it kind of goes to what I was saying with like there's a lot of things that just don't make sense.
So in that moment where she's looking it up, it's for her planning ahead to give money to her.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, that she like took out the. I remembered it wrong when we talked about it then because I remember that she took out a life insurance policy on Stephanie, and that when Stephanie died, she cashed that money in for the baby. But I guess it was just her giving away her fortune. But
Interesting.
yeah, she was planning Stephanie's death then.
That's like a Batman situation of how like far in advance she was
Well,
planning
she didn't
checks
even
out.
know that Stephanie was captured by Black Mask and was going to be dropped off at the hospital
Yeah.
unless like she had psychic powers or something like it. But yeah, this is character assassination of Leslie Tompkins. This was something that should not have happened, and it's been retconned, and rightfully so.
Do you think, is there any world that it seems like something Leslie would do? Because she's blown up at him, and other, I feel like
She's
No
blown up
Man's
at
Land,
him, but like she was the one that was like, "You shouldn't beat up Killer Croc because I don't believe in any violence." That's not a person that's going to kill a teenage girl.
It's true. Yeah.
And that was one thing that I liked about Leslie Tompkins versus Alfred is that like, she was kind of like the other side of Alfred. Like if Alfred was like Bruce's surrogate father, Leslie was his surrogate mother. But unlike Alfred, she disagreed with the Batman lifestyle, like, and would try and like talk him out of it. Like she was more anti-Batman than Alfred was. But again, never to the point of killing a child. And then there's the whole Hippocratic oath of it all,
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and then Batman letting her like go at the end. That's really weird too. And you can chalk it up to like he still looks at her as that mother figure and he can't bring himself to like take her in because of that. Or if you know the eventual retcon, because here's the stupid thing. When Stephanie does turn up alive, Batman says, I always suspected it on some level. So like if Batman suspects that Stephanie's still alive and that's why he didn't turn Leslie in, then why is he so mad at Leslie in this? It's really weird. Like the retcons upon the rec it's like that Russian doll of like retcons,
Sure. The
like
nesting doll. Yeah.
yeah, the nesting doll. Because it's like because when Bruce leaves, he's like he tells Alfred, I discovered this weeks ago, but then when Stephanie turns up alive, he's like, I suspected it all along. That's why I didn't put a memorial in the cave. It's like, what is even in Bruce's head in this scene then, if we take that retcon in mind? And then the retcon did the best that it could do under the circumstances, because the important thing was that we needed Stephanie alive again. But like if Leslie faked Stephanie's death and took her to Africa, why did Stephanie agree to let her mom think she was dead? Like why did she what?
Well, I feel like we've seen that in television and films where, like, for it to
Yeah,
work, no one can know.
but like the stakes aren't that high. Stephanie didn't need to. I mean, maybe Stephanie was just so ashamed of everything that happened in war games that she was willing to like let her mom believe she
Yeah.
was dead. But then also like, why did they both go to Africa together? And also like, they didn't go to Africa right away. Like they said, like oh, Stephanie, Leslie's been gone for like quit like a few days or weeks ago or whatever it was. And we're like well past war games at this point. It's like we've had months of this new status quo.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the issue numbers, so like was Stephanie just hiding in like Leslie's like bathroom during that time, and then they went to Africa together, and like because we find out like there's like a flashback story when Stephanie comes back. Stephanie's in the camp working with Leslie during this period, so like Batman doesn't notice the blonde girl, or something. It's
Super focused. She might have been hiding at that moment.
And why did she like what was Leslie's plan if Stephanie was alive when she like sent the tape and everything for all this absolution? It's the more you pick apart at this, it doesn't make sense. But as it was written at the time, like let's forget about the retcon. Oh, actually, before we forget about the retcon, I mentioned before that like Stephanie's secret identity, like that's never dealt with. Batman says here that he's like alerted the authorities. Leslie's now a wanted criminal. When Stephanie comes back, Leslie comes back with her, and like Leslie does not go to jail. She's like not wanted for the murder anymore. That's another thing that's forgotten about. It's like there needs to be like an epilogue that deals with this all.
Well, there's no evidence that she's the murderer.
The files, the
They've been destroyed.
Batman found the no, because Batman says the files were destroyed, but not the digital records of it on the computer.
Okay.
So like all of this, like let's get the files, like it's like that's anticlimactic because Batman says actually they were on the computer all along.
Yeah.
And I've known it was Leslie all along, but also I knew that it wasn't Leslie all along. Like, but if we forget about the retcon and judge this story as it was originally intended to be, as it was written at the time, as it was published at the time, this is character assassination of Leslie Tompkins that was not necessary. And I'm glad, even though the retcon was messy, I'm glad that they retconned it.
Yeah, I mean it's very shocking, obviously.
Yeah,
So if we go for shock power, I think they succeeded. I think her reasoning, I understand what she's trying to do, but I think it's just like messed up from stress. So it's just it did not work out. It was not the best. I know she wants to stop it, but that was just not the way to do it. Yeah, it's very interesting. And then it yeah, again just makes,
I
her
love I love the way that you like articulated that. You're like, she was stressed. That was not the way to stop it. It's like killing a teenage girl. No, like you're like, oh, she was stressed. That wasn't the way this. Like it's just like such a casual way to talk about like her stress.
Oh, yeah, it was just one thing on top of another. She's like, "Is this ever going to end? I've got to stop it. I think I'll do this." So there, she should have maybe brainstormed other options.
She should have done
Um,
something that wasn't murdering a child.
yes, yeah, but it does make it work. Like if it were a spur of the moment thing, like I think if I
This was
keep
super
I know
premeditated.
if I keep medical care from her, I think that would have been one thing, but yeah, the fact that we have evidence of her actually planning it makes it seem worse, I would say.
Yeah,
So, because this is murder,
yeah.
yeah, not
I thought our
homicide.
conversation with Batman was like well written. It was just really out of character.
Yeah. No, I would
Like
agree.
like it was like that was like a good like that was a good scene, but also a bad scene because it was character assassination for Leslie.
Yeah.
But if I never knew anything about Leslie Tompkins, I'd be like, wow, this was a well written scene.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess people it'd be like it's tantamount to Jim Gordon murdering or something like that. Like, what's happened?
Jim
Uh,
Gordon has done murders.
but this sort of murder.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, generally, someone that you feel like is morally um
yeah.
I don't know, superior to many characters. Yeah, just interesting. Okay. Any other thoughts on the finale?
What do you think about Batman saying like you're a criminal, blah blah blah? The cops are searching for you, but him like leaving her there.
I think that's because of their relationship.
Do you think that's fair?
Fair to justice.
Fair in general. Like, I mean, if I was Thug Number 7 and Batman like hauled me for like stealing jewelry, but like he lets a child murderer live in Africa, then I'd
No,
be ticked.
it's
But that's
yeah,
the
no,
same thing with
it's
Catwoman.
not. It's not fair and equal. I think that
and,
for
and
once,
also a fair
Batman.
characterization of Batman too. Like, do you think that Batman would let her go?
I think so. I think that this is one time that he lets his emotions take a bit of lead, and I think that there's just this battle that he has going on, knowing that someone he has loved and cherished and was a mother figure has done this, and so I think his gift is that you're basically exiled. But yeah, I won't. I'll only turn you in if you break one of these things. So because I think he's right that probably the worst torment is just her being on her own. Though it's interesting that he doesn't consider that she would kill herself. Because I mean, she's ready to die at his hands. So I'm
I
just
think I
shocked
think
that given space that she wouldn't commit suicide.
I think if she was going to, she would have done it at that point because of how guilty she felt.
Yeah.
But then it becomes, what was she arguing with that person about when she quits? Was she arguing about this? And
Vera.
is Leslie then responsible for Vera's death, like through happens? Well, but then that goes to what I was saying before. The only one responsible for Vera's death is Black Mask because like he killed
Yeah.
her.
Yeah. So you
But
think Vera knew?
how did Black Mask know to go for Vera and the files? Because he would have had to. Man, this storyline. The closer you look at it, the more it's like. Because he would have had. Did Black Mask randomly say one day, "I should look into those Stephanie Brown files," and then he killed Vera for them?
I think he probably wanted to kill. He was going to get it from Leslie, but she was gone. So the next best
But
thing was Vera.
but then like Leslie happened to mail the videotape at the same time as like they were as like Arturo Rodriguez was planning his thing. Like or no, or God, there's a lot of coincidences in here because Leslie's plan to like lure Bruce over there happened at the same time as like Black Mask and Arturo Rodriguez's plan about Stephanie's death was happening, completely independent of each other.
Yeah.
Oh
I wish you watched a news story,
man, this story was a lot better when I remember. Yeah, but then she had to
but I
mail
don't
that
know
from
how
Africa.
they're in a relief camp. I don't know that they're necessarily getting news.
Yeah, I mean, they have to be getting some news.
Maybe.
Wonder if Stephanie saw the news program and was like, "Oh,
There I am. Oh no, it
yeah,
happened.
yeah." I see oh God, I'm forgetting the name of the artist, but I see from Batgirl Year One.
Marcos
Oh, you're
Martin.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marcos Martin. There we go. Yeah, I was like, I see Marcos Martin Babs all tiny, but hopefully that didn't disrupt anything.
No. Any other thoughts on the finale?
No,
Okay.
I
Thoughts?
I I think I've picked it apart like
Yeah.
well enough.
Thoughts overall on war crimes? Did we need it?
On some level, yeah, because the end of War Games was really messy, and this
Okay.
like cleaned up some of the stuff. But I think like War Games, this was its own mess, and it could have been
Sure.
handled better.
Could we have just let Stephanie die of natural causes? Sorry, they're not technically natural causes, but just have her die because of
Black
wounds
Mass, yeah,
sustained. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
that's what I would have done.
Interesting. But then I guess you'd have to take out some of the information that was seeded throughout that we were noticing.
Yeah,
Less.
but I think that that's because then it also makes Stephanie like less of an active participant in her own death, where like she's killed by like a doctor withholding treatment from her, as opposed to like the more heroic death of fighting against Black Mask until the bitter end. Then again, there was all those torture scenes. I would have done so much differently.
Yeah. I am happy. I think the main thing that I get from this is seeing what Stephanie's death's effect is on Arthur and Crystal,
Yeah,
because we didn't
agreed.
really get that.
Mhm.
We have it on the Bat family, but not her family. So I thought that was interesting. What would you give War Crimes out of 10? Let's see here. Let's see. What could we do? I guess trips to Africa. Out of 10 trips to Africa, we'll give
Oh
this
God, maybe 6.
6 out of 10 trips to Africa.
There was parts of it that were well written, but the character assassination of Leslie is like
Oh,
too
did for
much
that
to
for you?
ignore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bless the rains down in
Yeah, I
Africa.
guess I could have used that. That's not the song I'm using. It's interesting. I guess, yeah, there are some things that were confuzzling to me. Maybe, maybe 6.5 for me. 6.5 out of 10 trips to Africa. I think, yeah. Would you recommend war crimes, war games?
No,
Okay.
no. I mean, maybe some of War Games, but like it was interesting to revisit. Can you hear this?
Yes, but YouTube will copyright infringe me.
Oh,
So luckily
say
it was
say no more.
yeah,
Say no.
luckily it was just like 5 seconds, so I think it'll pass, but
Okay,
if it
man.
kept going, I think it would be flagged, unfortunately.
Between my f bombs and
The
other
F-bomb
controversy.
and the faux
Yeah,
pas. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
gonna have to do
and
all this cutting that I don't
yeah,
normally do. So I'm
I
lying to
know.
people by saying that uncut version because it's gonna be cut. The
You
F-bomb will
could
stay.
you could say mostly uncuts.
Mostly uncut, yeah.
Yeah,
Could you imagine if they produced, like, a movie? It's mostly uncut. Okay,
I would have
well,
follow-up questions.
who would have follow-up questions?
I would have follow-up
Oh,
questions.
about what you cut?
Yeah, I was like,
What
what do you
was
mean
yeah.
mostly uncut? Like if this was so raunchy that you left everything uncut, like what was so bad that you had to cut
Yeah,
one
that you
thing?
had to cut it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is the final time you'll ever be on Backroad Oracle, so
After all my faux pas.
I'm just kidding. Would you like to let the peoples know where they can find and support you?
Certainly. So DC's official website, dc.com. I have features in the news section that are fun to do, fun to write. I've had a home there for the past few years, and that is it's been fun. And over on thepopverse.com, I have regular features over there. So yeah, I do a lot more writing now than I do podcasting. So those are the places you can find me on the internets.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe you'll see Josh and I on the internets after we elope in Texas.
Yeah. I, what if I just put on my Snapchat, like, because it's like a smaller audience than the kids I work with, like the picture of us saying, like,
I've got the
on, like,
bouquet and
or
yeah.
something like preparing for the wedding. They're like, just like vague like that. So like, are you getting married? Like, and you
Yeah.
didn't tell us? Like,
Remember when you gave me that felt ring box randomly one year?
yeah,
And you
yeah,
saw my classroom.
yeah,
Yeah.
man. Our character designs were so different back
They
then.
were different back then, yeah.
Yeah, that was my 30th birthday.
Oh,
I'm
interesting.
turning I'm turning 38 this year.
Shocking.
Yeah. Where
Oh,
has that time gone?
I don't know.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I'm kicking this guy off. When I come back, I'm going to cover well, just Birds of Prey because I haven't had time to read Nightwing. I feel like I'm like 5 issues behind. So Birds of Prey, Volume 5, Number 2. But first, Zaius' Radio Hour featuring Amoeba by Claro. See you soon.